So, Riot has decided to go crazy because we got the PBE notes for what's going to be coming in the next patch, and it is a lot of stuff. And some of the changes I'm on board with, some I'm not as on board with, but let's dive in. And the first thing we'll talk about, because there's a lot of stuff that's in there, it's kind of like half the things, which is just like a tiny little thing, right? That they want damage over time area abilities, like Brimstone's Molly or Viper Snakebite, they now damage enemy utility, okay? And so what they've done is they've increased the health of those utilities so that they aren't instantly destroyed, but can still be destroyed by guns in most situations. So let's take an example. You put a Viper Molly on the floor and then you throw a KO knife at it. The KO knife now has 20 HP, but it will be damaged by that Viper Molly. But the idea is, of course, if the KO knife only had 1 HP, you wouldn't be able to throw it on a Viper Molly. Whereas by making it 20 HP, it'll still be destroyed by, guns almost always. But it won't be destroyed, by a snake bite straight away before that KO knife can go off. That is kind of the point of what they are trying to do. So a lot of the changes are to do with that, but let's get into the real changes now. And we'll start at the very top with Breach. Rolling Thunder now goes from 7 to 8 points, ultimate points. This is obviously a pretty big change to Breach. It's kind of interesting. They talked about, agent ultimates that have large site-wide footprints. They kind of want to make bigger. This, I guess, is kind of following the kind of fade nerf that did the exact same thing, right? And yeah, sure, this is a fine change. I'm not sure necessarily Breach needed a nerf, but this is okay. I don't have a massive problem with it. And so yeah, it's an okay change, but Breach is going to get a little bit worse. Obviously, we know about all of the chamber stuff, right? We already made a whole video about the chamber stuff. You can go and watch that if you want. I'll leave a link in the description. Cypher. His strat is going from health 1 to 20, so nothing really there. The Fade Prowler health, though, is coming down to 60. That one actually will have, a bit more of an impact overall. And, it'll be easier to shoot and easier to kill. Again, it's a tiny nerf to Fade. It's not that big of a deal. Harbor's High Tide is going from 12 seconds to 15 seconds, and his Cascade is going from 5 to 7 seconds. This is a really nice change, this is a big change. You think about percentage time-wise of these smokes, they got quite a bit better. Which is good for Harbor. Again, I'm not sure it's the change that is going to make Harbor meta or whatever, but again, it's a step in the right direction, right? I think with Harbor, what they're gonna keep doing probably is, we got the 2 Cascades, and now, they last a bit longer with the High Tide as well, and so, when you're buffing an agent and you feel like an agent is very, very weak, you can do this where you just slowly, incrementally buff Harbor, which I think is a better way of doing it than, just like, here's a ton of Harbor changes, he's now completely broken and we'll need to nerf him, right? Just slowly build him up until he gets to a good spot, right? Again, I'm not quite sure this is the change that will make Harbor, in a good spot. But again, it's like a slow build up, right? We're slowly creeping up to where Harbor will eventually be, pretty good. So happy for Harbor. KO. His null command has now also gone from 7 to 8 points. If you were watching the stream yesterday, I literally called that this would happen. This is a very good change. This probably should have happened quite a while ago, if I'm being honest, because this ultimate is very powerful, has been for a very long time, and probably should have always been 8 points. So yeah, this is a very good change, very on board with this overall. And honestly, maybe it's not even enough for KO, because after the chamber nerfs, I kind of think KO probably is the strongest agent in the game. This does help, bring him down. But, I'm still not quite sure it's fully enough. KO will still be very good, but this is a good change, I think. Okay, this one is pretty massive as well. The lockdown health has increased from 150 to 200, and you might think, who cares about that? This is actually very significant, because now, as far as I'm aware, this will now survive a lot of stuff. You know how you could always destroy a lockdown with a breach aftershock, and it just made the lockdown pretty pointless if a breach was in the game? That will no longer be the case, because as far as I'm aware, the lockdown, will be 200 health, and the aftershock deals 180 damage. So that's very good, and I'm assuming that it will survive, a lot of other utility that could have killed it before, KO nades and stuff like that. I assume. If I'm wrong about that, correct me, but this is a massive change if that is the case. This is a huge buff, and the lockdown, if that is the case, probably becomes one of the strongest ults in the game again, because it's just a very reliable way of taking a lot of space, and that is a good ult to have if it can't be reliably destroyed. Particularly for maps like Haven, where Breach was very common, or any map where both Killjoy and Breach were going to be played, this is a very, very good change. Now the one on Fracture as well, that goes underneath on B, which is, that like, literally there's nothing you can do now. You just literally have to give up the B site, I guess, as the defenders. So yeah, great for Killjoy. I know a lot of you, when the Cypher buffs came in, were kind of like, oh, Killjoy needs buffs too. Well, here you go, which is good. Okay, Omen. Paranoia, cost decrease from 300 to 250. This is where, like, the Breach one, I was kind of like, I'm not too sure. Like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? This one is the first one that I'm like, actually, no, I don't agree with this. I think the reason that they've done this is because it makes all flashes 250. I think. Maybe off the top of my head, I'm wrong. Is the Leah 250? I actually don't know. I'm not even going to go and search it up. I could edit this out, but I'm not going to. And so the Paranoia is becoming 250. Now, this makes Omen, who's already a very good pick and a very popular pick across many maps, and Split is coming back, which unless they change it significantly, will be an Omen map as well. Yeah, I don't get why they've done this. It makes Omen's pistol rounds, I mean, it's not a major change, right? It's only 50 costs, so, you might be wondering why I'm freaking out about it so much. But the thing is, it makes Omen's pistol rounds a million times better. Because the problem with Omen pistol rounds was you had this Paranoia, which is a very powerful ability, right? But if you bought Paranoia, that meant you only had one smoke. And if you only had one smoke, depending on what map you're on, that might not be enough smokes. And so now you can buy a smoke, you can buy Paranoia, and you can buy light shields. And Omen's pistol rounds have just become significantly better. My problem with that is because Astra versus Omen, one of the advantages you could say Astra had over Omen was that Astra's pistol rounds, 2 stars and a Ghost or a Frenzy, was kind of more sorted and more kind of, it was more of a, like, nice buy than Omen's was, where it was kind of like, do I buy a Shrouded Step? Do I buy a second smoke? Do I just buy the Paranoia and a Ghost? It was a bit wonky, the pistol buy. So it gave you, like, it was a little reason to play Astra over Omen. Now I'd say Omen has a better pistol round, so it's just like another reason to pick Omen over Astra. And so I don't like the change. Phoenix Blaze goes down to the 150. That's fine. The Boombot, health decreased of the Boombot. It's a bit easier to destroy. Whatever. Sage. Okay. Sage's Barrier Orb, the Fortify delay is increased from 3 seconds to 3.3 seconds. Now, you might have no idea what they're talking about here. Basically, if you watch a Sage Wall go up, and I'll put a version of it on the screen now. If you watch a Sage Wall go up, after 3 seconds, you'll see that it has cracks in at the start, and then it kind of, you lose the cracks. And that, time that it's taken to remove those cracks is going from 3 seconds to 3.3 seconds. I think the reason that they've done this is to make it easier to destroy with a classic. Maybe even it can now be destroyed with a classic before it fortifies itself. So if you see a Sage Wall and you instantly start shooting at one block, and I haven't tried this, so I don't know, because I can't try it. But if you just start shooting at it straight away with a classic, I think you might just be able to destroy it before it fortifies, and that's maybe why they've done this. To just make it a bit worse on pistol rounds. The Healing Orb as well has gone from 60 HP to yourself to 30, but 60 to 100 for your allies. I know a lot of people have been freaking out about this. A lot of people have been saying, like, oh, why would they ever do this? Sage and solo queue is going to be so much worse. Everyone's going to be begging for heals or whatever. Look, Sage is meant to be a supportive character. I don't know why I'm surprised it wasn't like this the whole time, to be honest, right? Because Duelist's healing is meant to self-heal. Sage's healing is meant to be supportive. I mean, you could even say it's a surprise that Sage even can self-heal. If you look at other agents like Skye and whatnot, who obviously can't self-heal. So to me, this is not a surprise. This is probably how it should have always been, to be honest. And it makes just more sense. And I know a lot of you will be freaking out about, ooh, solo queue, whatever. But, like, agent design-wise, this makes a lot more sense to have it this way than it was on the previous way. So, I think it's a good change. Okay, we got, what's next? Oh, Skye. Skye's Trailblazer and Regrowth have changed cost. The Trailblazer goes up to 300. The Regrowth comes down to 150. This is more in line, of course, with, like, the general output of those abilities. 100%. But I hate this change. And I hate this change. I'll be doing a video on Monday about this. About Skye just got obliterated. Skye just lost Bind and Breeze. And now this is like a nerf as well, right? Because you'd rather have the Trailblazer than the Regrowth. So Skye just got absolutely, like, pounded. Which isn't great. Again, you can buy now Regrowth and a Flash. And light shields for Skye on pistol. Which is, like, good, I guess. because a regrowth on pistol can be pretty nice, because you often, you won't get one shots and whatnot. People might survive and be damaged, and health matters more in a pistol round than it does in others. But this, I think, overall is a nerf, because you're gonna buy the Trailblazer more. I mean, it's a slight nerf, but it is still a nerf, I think, and that's not good for Skye, because Skye, I think, will need a buff. Okay, Viper's Pit. The smoke integrity regen time has gone from 5 to 25 seconds. If you don't know what that is, it means when you come out of a Viper's Pit, that little bar when you go back into the Viper's Pit that recharges it, the regen time of that has gone up significantly. So it does it pretty quickly now. It will do it a lot slower. Basically, the idea is to keep you inside of the Viper's Pit more. If you go outside, it's more of a punish. You can't just keep dipping in and out. You're going to have to, once you dip out, you're probably going to have to just stay in. And the max time out of the smoke has decreased from 15 seconds to 8 seconds as well. So the clear point here is stay inside the pit. We don't like all of you just like quickly jumping into the pit, coming out of it, jumping in to just keep it alive, coming out of it. We don't like that. That is basically what they're saying here. And it's also going to an 8 cost ult. Probably fair, right? The Viper's Pit is a very good ult, and so it going to 8 cost is probably fair, and Viper is in a pretty good spot and has been pretty strong for a while, and also, this might help Harbor, like it's like a little thing of like, rebalancing Viper and Harbor, right, and kind of getting to the same place, which is good. So yeah, a good change, I think, overall. And then the Yoru Gate Crash has, the health has gone down from that as well, but also the cost has decreased, so that's a nice little Yoru buff as well. You'll also probably be getting more assists in games, because there's a ton of like extra, like, basically you're going to get assists for longer periods of time if you've done something to an opponent. You can see like, the concussing or nearsighting or detaining someone, the assist basically has gone a bit longer than it was before. And this is actually after the debuff has expired. So now after someone, let's say, has been detained, they've come out of the detain, you'll now get a 3-second grace period where, you will still get an assist. So, and that's like from all these extra things that you see, extant smokes, a slow suppression, all of that stuff is getting, extra assists. There's also a ton of extra abilities that now destroy other abilities, like, a Brim Molly will now destroy an alarm bot, or something like a chamber trademark or rendezvous, right? That's actually somewhat, good, I think. Like, obviously, like, a Molly killing a Rain-Aleer, I don't think that's ever going to happen, to be honest. I mean, maybe once or twice, but, not often. But, destroying like a barrier orb or a trademark or a rendezvous or an alarm bot, like, that is actually significant. And so that, like, there are some changes here that you will see in games, and there's just a ton of these, right? You can go and read them if you really want to, but basically, if something deals damage, it's going to deal damage to a ton of now, the different utility in the game as well, as you can see. They've also changed damage multiplier updates to different utility as well. So like an Aftershock will now deal only 100% damage to non-players, right? So again, some utility on utility crime. The only one that I think maybe matters here is the Blast Pack now deals a ton less damage. Though for those of you who don't know, you could destroy an Ascent door with just one Blast Pack, and it was actually very effective at destroying Sage Walls as well. Now it won't be. So, that is now the case. So keep that in mind. Also, they made different utility now immune to ally damage as well. I'm sure many people will be happy about this. There's a ton of different ones for this. So basically, these won't be destroyed by your useless teammates anymore either. And then finally, they decided to change the Specter and add a different damage range for it. So 0 to 15, it's still 26. 15 to 30, it's now 22, and 30 plus, it's now 20. The old one was just 0 to 20 and 20 plus. So this is a nerf to the Spectre as well, which again, I think is a good thing. They probably should like buff the Ares, but not as crazy as they did before, just to try and make the Spectre and the Ares kind of balanced again. This I don't think is the change that's going to do that, but I don't mind the change, to be honest. This feels like it probably should have been this way again for the whole time. I don't really know why it wasn't, but yeah, this is a good change. I'm pretty happy with this change overall, and that kind of does it. So, a lot of like minor, like, interaction things that they're changing between the utility that, won't matter a lot of the time, but will matter some of the time for some of them. But the big ones to me are some of the ult changes. Obviously, Chamber's getting massive changes. But, like the Breach ult, the Killjoy ult, the Harbor got a buff. We'll see if that changes. The KO ult, the Viper ult as well, right? Those are kind of like the big ones to me. The Sage changes are pretty big as well. On the whole, I think I agree with most of the changes and what they've done for most of them. I do think that as we go forward, there's still some work to do. You know, I do think that particularly when we think about the map pool as well and what that map pool is going to look like, as I say, agents like Skye might need something more, right? There's still agents like Phoenix and Yoru who I would say probably are still going to need more to be, you know, good enough, right? There's still going to be certain agents that I think we still could use with some changes. Not a big fan of the Omen change personally, but overall, not that bad. Things are changing, which is fun, I guess, in a way as well. So we'll just have to see how it plays out.